ॐ ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। जय गुरुदेव।
जय गुरुदेव। ओम श्री परमात्मने नमः। श्रीमद् गीता षोडशोऽध्यायः दैवासुर संपत् विभाग योगः। श्रीभगवानुवाच अभयं सत्त्वसंशुद्धिः ज्ञानयोगव्यवस्थितिः दानं दमश्च यज्ञश्च स्वाध्यायस्तप आर्जवम् अहिंसा सत्यं क्रोधस्त्यात् अहिंसा सत्यमक्रोधः त्यागः शान्तिरपैशुनम् दया भूतेष्वलोलुप्तं मार्दवं ह्रीरचापलम् तेजः क्षमा धृतिः शौचम् अद्रोहो नातिमानिता भवन्ति सम्पदं दैवीम् अभिजातस्य भारत दम्भो दर्पोऽभिमानश्च क्रोधः पारुष्यमेव च अज्ञानं चाभिजातस्य पार्थः सम्पद्मासुरीम् दैवी सम्पद्विमुक्षाय निबन्धायासुरीमता मा शुचः सम्पदं दैवीम् अभिजातोऽसि पाण्डव। ॐ तत्सत्। Oh, sorry, I was muted. Um, uh, just give me 2 minutes. The chapter is not opening. Chapter 16. The file is not opening. I will once again try. Brahmaraji, the chapter 16 file is not opening. I will
Belaji, you want me to share?
Yeah, appreciate. Yeah, I'm unable to open.
Yeah, let me know if you're able to share, Rinal. If not, I'll do it from my computer.
Shall I read chapter 16, few more verses, Brahmaraji, till she shares?
Yes, you can do that.
द्वौ भूतसर्गौ लोकेऽस्मिन् दैव आसुर एव च Mrinalji, would you like to read? If you can read also, it is very nice. And if you want me to read, please let me know.
Belaji, you read. I'll share the screen.
Okay, धन्यवाद. Chapter 16, Daivasur Vibhaga Yoga. Discussion of becoming and unbecoming dispositions.
Bella, you are muted, Bella.
Oh, yeah. Description of becoming and unbecoming dispositions. Introduction. In the 9th chapter, we have a verse about those who are entrenched in a disposition which deludes. These are people of false hopes, moghashah, of actions that are not proper, mogha karmanah, of knowledge that is nothing but error, mogha gnyanah, and those who have a total lack of discrimination, vichetasah. There, Mrinalji, could you please see there is one footnote verse from chapter 9, 12th shloka. I will just read the shloka, chapter 9, verse 12. मोघाशामोघकर्माणः मोघज्ञानाविचेतसः राक्षसीमासुरीं चैव प्रकृतिं मोहिनीं श्रिताः. So, in the 9th chapter, we have a verse about those who are entrenched in a disposition which deludes. These are people of false hopes, moghashah, of actions that are not proper, mogha karmanah, of knowledge that is nothing but error, mogha jnanah, and those who have a total lack of discrimination, vichetasah. Their disposition is that of an asura or a rakshasa. The next verse, on the other hand, describes those who are committed to a divine or spiritual disposition. Being mature, they seek Bhagwan, the truth of everything. These dispositions, the Daivi and the Asuri, are explained further now. Shankara introduces this chapter reminding us of the Daivi, Rakshasi, and Asuri dispositions briefly mentioned in the 9th chapter. We will not translate these words for the time being, except to say that Rakshasi and Asuri are opposed to Daivi. In order to show these in detail, this chapter is begun. This disposition, which is called divine, Daivi, is meant to help you gain freedom from samsara, whereas the Asuri and Rakshasi dispositions bind you to samsara. In order to cultivate the values that constitute the mind of a person with a spiritual disposition, certain virtues are presented. The qualities and consequences of the Asuri and Rakshasi dispositions are also told in order that we may avoid them. Both these types of qualities, Daivi and Asuri, appear to be very natural in one individual. Even a rank criminal has sympathy, friendliness, and affection under certain circumstances. Although in this way the opposite qualities seem to be very natural, they are really not, because they are not in keeping with the nature of Atma. I repeat this once again. Both these types of qualities, Daivi and Asuri, appear to be very natural in one individual. Even a rank criminal has sympathy, friendliness, and affection under certain circumstances. Although in this way, the opposite qualities seem to be very natural, they are really not, because they are not in keeping with the nature of Atma. How unnatural they are has to be seen by first understanding the values and then being very alert about cultivating them. In keeping with the understanding, one has to nurture the new values and break the habits that are rooted in the old understanding. The purpose of the 16th chapter is to help us do this. I repeat the last few lines. Even a rank criminal has sympathy, friendliness, and affection under certain circumstances. Although in this way, the opposite qualities seem to be very natural, they are really not, because they are not in keeping with the nature of Atma. How unnatural they are has to be seen by first understanding the values and then being very alert about cultivating them. In keeping with the understanding, one has to nurture the new values and break the habits that are rooted in the old understanding. The purpose of the 16th chapter is to help us do this. A Rakshasa is someone from whom you have to protect yourself. This is a person whose value structure makes his behavior damaging to the well-being of others. Naturally, you have to protect yourself from such a person. So, Rakshasa, it is a value structure. They do not have horns, physical horns. Okay. An Asura is one who finds enjoyment only in the sense objects. He has no real aesthetic appreciation or interest in anything profound and consequently only dissipates his time and energy. Also, for him, the end is the important thing. So, he will compromise the means if necessary. Small ends like power, name, pleasure, etc., are so important that in the process of gaining them, he does not mind harming people. This is an asura. It is their modes of thinking and value structure that constitute the disposition of an asura or a rakshasa. The purpose of this chapter is to help one cultivate Daivi Sampat, spiritual wealth. The values are shown not for self judgment nor for judgment of others, but to understand each one of them so well that the understanding and yourself are one and the same. Then, if there is any particular tendency that is against that understanding, it is made to conform to your understanding of the value structure. Values are not to be kept as an ideal, but understood thoroughly. Then an attempt to conform to them is a necessity only to the extent that an old tendency persists. This does not mean that we never make choices that are convenient. As long as the choice is not against our understanding, we must certainly adopt it. But convenience is not the main criterion for choice. If it goes against certain values, we do not do what is convenient, but do exactly what is to be done. This is the discipline. I repeat this paragraph. The purpose of this chapter is to help one cultivate Daivi Sampat, spiritual wealth. The values are shown not for self-judgment, nor for judgment of others, but to understand each one of them so well that the understanding and yourself are one and the same. Then, if there is any particular tendency that is against that understanding, it is made to conform to your understanding of the value structure. Values are not to be kept as an ideal, but understood thoroughly. Then, an attempt to conform to them is a necessity only to the extent that an old tendency persists. I repeat this line. Then, an attempt to conform to them is a necessity only to the extent that an old tendency persists. This does not mean that we never make choices that are convenient. As long as the choice is not against our understanding, we must certainly adopt it. But convenience is not the main criterion for choice. If it goes against certain values, we do not do what is convenient, but do exactly what is to be done. This is the discipline. So the very important fact is these spiritual wealth we have to not for self-judgment, but to understand our tendencies which are negative or positive and not to label others, not to judge even others. And to cultivate those spiritual wealth, we have to, it should be through discipline.
Jai Gurudev Bela, can you just read? My internet was off for a while. The first paragraph,
Yeah,
the introduction. Yeah.
yes, yes. Yeah. In the 9th chapter, we have a verse about those who are entrenched in a disposition which deludes. These are people of false
No,
hope.
sorry, it is in the beginning. This is the starting? Okay, yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah. In the 9th chapter, we have a verse about those who are entrenched in a disposition which deludes. These are people of false hopes, mogha of actions that are not proper, mogha karmanah, of knowledge that is nothing but error, mogha jnanah, and those who have a total lack of discrimination, vichetasah. Their disposition is that of an asura or a rakshasa. The next verse, on the other hand, describes those who are committed to a divine or spiritual disposition. Being mature, they seek Bhagavan, the truth of everything. These dispositions, the Daivi and the Asuri, are explained. It is Kshametam, it is Asuri. These dispositions, the Daivi and the Asuri, are explained further now. Shankara introduces this chapter reminding us of the Daivi, Rakshasi, and Asuri dispositions briefly mentioned in the 9th chapter. We will not translate these words for the time being, except to say that Rakshasi and Asuri are opposed to Daivi. In order to show these in detail, this chapter is begun. We will not translate these words for the time being, except to say that Rakshasi and Asuri are opposed to Daivi. In order to show these in detail, this chapter is begun. This disposition, which is called divine, Daivi, is meant to help you gain freedom from samsara, whereas the Asuri and Rakshasi dispositions bind you to samsara. In order to cultivate the values that constitute the mind of a person with a spiritual disposition, certain virtues are presented. The qualities and consequences of the Asuri and Rakshasi dispositions are also told in order that we may avoid them. Both these types of qualities, Daivi and Asuri, appear to be very natural in one individual. Even a rank criminal has sympathy, friendliness, and affection under certain circumstances. Although in this way, the opposite qualities seem to be very natural, they are really not, because they are not in keeping with the nature of Atma. How unnatural they are has to be seen by first understanding the values and then being very alert about cultivating them. In keeping with the understanding, one has to nurture the new values and break the habits that are rooted in the old understanding. The purpose of the 16th chapter is to help us do this. A Rakshasa is someone from whom you have to protect yourself. This is a person whose value structure makes his behavior damaging to the well-being of others. Naturally, you have to protect yourself from such a person. An asura is one who finds enjoyment only in the sense objects. He has no real aesthetic appreciation or interest in anything profound and consequently only dissipates his time and energy. Also, for him, the end is the important thing. So, he will compromise the means if necessary. Small ends like power, name, pleasure, etc., are so important that in the process of gaining them, he does not mind harming people. This is an asura. It is their modes of thinking and value structure that constitute the disposition of an asura or a rakshasa. The purpose of this chapter is to help one cultivate Daivi Sampat, spiritual wealth. The values are shown not for self-judgment nor for judgment of others, but to understand each one of them so well that the understanding and yourself are one and the same. Then, if there is any particular tendency that is against that understanding, it is made to conform to your understanding of the value structure. Values are not to be kept as an ideal, but understood thoroughly. Then, an attempt to conform to them is a necessity only to the extent that an old tendency persists. The old tendency does not persist or persist. I think there is. Then an attempt to conform to them is a necessity only to the extent that an old tendency persists. This
Should not.
does not,
It should be. It should not, I think.
yeah, does not persist, right? Old habits, old tendencies which are
Should go.
negative.
No,
Yes, an
should
old
go.
habit persists, then you'll have to conform to this.
Oh.
Okay,
As
okay,
long as
yeah.
an old habit, which is not Daivi Sampat, is persisting, then you will have to
You have to
conform
conform.
to this.
So
Okay,
wonderful.
okay. Wow, wow.
Oh, thank you.
I
Congratulations.
repeat once again, yeah. Then an attempt to conform to them is a necessity only to the extent that an old tendency persists. This does not mean that we never make choices that are convenient. As long as the choice is not against our understanding, we must certainly adopt it. But convenience is not the main criterion for choice. If it goes against certain values, we do not do what is convenient, but do exactly what is to be done. This is the discipline.
Here, the convenience can be translated as raga or dvesha.
Mhm.
So it is not like you don't follow your raga dvesha, but you do what is, if that is that is the question of the choice. Choice is if it's convenient, as long as it is in line with what is to be done, it is fine. But if your convenience is going against what is to be done, then you drop it and you just stick on to what is to be done.
Because of the sense or senses enjoyment, only we are doing these choices. That's why it is asuri, no?
Yeah, it is not wrong to have a choice. But if your action is guided only by that choice, irrespective of whether it is right or wrong, then it becomes binding. Then it becomes an asuri guna. You're only following your choices according to your convenience.
If it is becomes uncomfortable to others, that is what is written. That is what is asuri, which is not good for the community or the others world. Those are all the asuri's qualities.
Because for them, the only end is important. The means is not important. So in order to get the end, which is either power, name, fame, wealth, whatever, they would not mind doing whatever the means is compromised there. Whereas what Swamiji, what Bhagwan is talking of here is the Daiva Guni, which is the means is as important. And that is what he says, you must understand these so that the understanding becomes you. And it is not something that we should impose. It should not be like a mandate, should not. Then it is not coming out of understanding.
And it should not be
self-judgment and not for judging that others.
Yeah, and very, very important. You don't use these to self-judge and, slot yourself in plus minus. Neither do you do this with others.
Yeah, but understand each one of them so well. Understanding and word and the same. So the others also like one and the same.
Yeah, and it becomes you. That understanding itself becomes you. Otherwise, the normal tendency of the mind is to start judging. The intellect comes in and you do a self-appraisal and appraisal of others.
Yeah, and also for your own benefit, like self. So he does everything to gain the power, like you said. It's for his own benefits, not for others' benefit.
When we judge ourselves to this Daivi, this one, we may feel guilty and we may leave the path, because these are very high, this one. So we have
both
to
can happen, no?
Both
can happen. You can say, I'm feeling guilty and leave. Or you sit in the judgment of, I'm right, you are wrong.
Wrong. No, for the others.
You are either vacillating between the victim culprit consciousness. You're not rising above that. So that is very, very clearly mentioned here that we should not use this to self-judge or judge others. That we need to be aware of that, and understand that.
What is said about the time they waste, or what do they do? In that line, that line is written, no? They waste their time, means they just kill the time.
No, they are not mature in the sense, the Asuri and the those that are Rakshasi and Asuri, they only indulge in their senses. And they're not on this path of finding out the truth. Whereas those that are that have the Daivi guna, they realize that they're mature enough to realize they have that viveka, what is right and wrong, and they're on the path to discover the truth. So therefore, the first category, they just waste their time and they continue to reel in samsara. Whereas what we're going to see right now is how when we unfold these Daivi gunas, they will be conducive for us to attain moksha.
Progress.
Is both Asura and Rakshasa are same?
No, different. Both are different, very clear differentiation they have given.
Line that is given, but maybe as we read down further, we'll get to know that.
Thank you then.
Yeah, Rakshasas are those who made others, they damage. Their behavior is such that it is damaging. Rakshasa.
And when
And
asuras
Asura is one who is always busy with the
enjoyment only
sense
sense
indulgence, sense
objects.
objects.
Okay. Mhm.
He doesn't have interest in anything profound,
Mhm.
only
Yeah.
dissipates his time and energy.
Energy
Mhm.
for the self-satisfaction of his sense objects, senses.
Yes. Mhm. And for him,
Okay.
the means are not important, only the end is important. He will do anything to achieve that end, all shortcuts.
Does not mind harming people.
Mhm. It is Asura.
Thanks.
And in the beginning of the introduction, it was mentioned that Moghasha, Mogha Karmanaha, Mogha Jnana Vichetasaha. That was in the 9th chapter, the introduction given to this. They are deluded, completely deluded by their, and therefore they come from that space. There is no semblance of maturity.
Ignorance.
Yeah, it's thick. That's a thick layer of ignorance.
Thick ignorance.
Yeah, I think we can go forward.
Yeah. Daivi Sampat, those values that we are to cultivate, the Lord tells us in the next 3 verses. The 3 verses are to be read together because Bhavanti, the verb for all 3, is in the 3rd verse. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhihi Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi Danam Damasya Yajnasya Svadhyaya Taparjavam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha said, Abhayam, freedom from fear, Sattva Samshuddhihi, purity of mind, Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi, steadiness in contemplation, Danam, charity, Damaha cha, and judicious restraint, Yajnaha cha, and the rituals, Svadhyayah, recitation of one's own branch of Veda, Tapas, austerity, Arjavam, alignment of thought, word, and deed. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhihi Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi Danam Damaha cha Yajnaha cha Svadhyayah Tapas Arjavam. Ahimsa Satyamakrодhah Tyagah Shantirapayshunam Daya Bhuteshvaloluktvam Mardavam Hrirachapalam. Ahimsa, absence of hurting. Satyam, truthfulness. Akrodha, resolution of anger. Tyagah, renunciation. Shantihi, resolution of the mind. Apaishunam, absence of calumny, slandering. Bhuteshu, with regard to living beings. Daya, compassion. Aloluktvam, absence of ardent longing. Mardavam, softness. Rihi, modesty. Achapalam, absence of physical agitation. Ahimsa satyam akrodha tyagah shantihi apaishunam bhuteshu daya aloluptvam mardavam rihi achapalam. We have to by heart this shloka. Tejah Tejah Kshama Dhriti Shaucham Madroho Natimanita Bhavanti Sampadam Daivim Abhijatasya Bharata. Tejas, brilliance. Kshama, composure. Dhritihi, fortitude. Shaucham, cleanliness. Adroha, no thought of hurting. Na atimanita, no exaggerated self-opinion. Daivim sampadam, to the wealth of devas. Abhijatasya, for the one who is born. Bhavanti, are there. Bharata, O Bharata, Arjuna. Tejas, Kshama, Dhritihi, Shaucham, Adrohaha, Na Atimanita, Daivim Sampadam, Abhijatasya Bhavanti, Bharata.
These are exactly what we learned in chapter 13 from, I think, the 13th verse to the 17th verse. Amanitvam adambitvam ahimsa kshantirarjavam. And it's a good thing that we're repeating it now here.
Yeah, nirmama nirmahankaraha.
Yeah.
Sama sukha dukkha kshami.
Yeah. Shri Bhagavan said, freedom from fear, purity of mind, steadiness in contemplation, charity, judicious restraint, performing rituals, recitation of one's own branch of Veda, religious discipline, austerity, alignment of thought, word and deed, absence of hurting, truthfulness, resolution of anger, renunciation, resolution of the mind, absence of calumny, compassion for living beings, absence of ardent longing, softness, modesty, absence of physical agitation, brilliance, composure, fortitude, cleanliness, no thought of hurting, and no exaggerated self-opinion are there for the one who is born to the wealth of devas. Arjuna, each word here is a quality for the one who has cultivated or is born into the spiritual wealth. Daivim sampadam abhijatasya. Each one of these has to be understood thoroughly. Fearlessness. Abhaya is fearlessness. This is not the absolute abhaya of the wise man, which is freedom from the sense of duality. That is born of knowledge and is not what is discussed here. Here, we are looking into an attribute of the mind of a seeker. And this fearlessness is with reference to a number of things, and it depends on the sources of fear. What are the sources of fear? The primary one is death. This is not an ordinary thing and can only be eliminated by knowing cognitively that Atma is not subject to time. Fear is an emotion, and like any emotion, it is always preceded by a thought that we normally fail to recognize. That thought is the missing link which has to be discovered. The fear of death is a particular thought that is always backed by a certain relevant emotion because the love for survival is instinctive. This very natural love to be is inbuilt in the creation. No living organism wants to die. An animal always runs from a predator because instinctively it knows it will die otherwise. The fear here is instinctive, born of a love for survival. Cognitive appreciation here of the fact that I, Atma, am not subject to death can neutralize the thought which precedes the emotion of fear. The thought, I will die, is not seen by you. Only the emotion of fear is seen. If you can detect the thought, I will die, you can begin to inquire into it. What is it that is going to die? The body? It is definitely going to die. Nothing can stop it. That which dies always dies. And that which dies always dies, and what cannot die does not. This is anityatva vichara. It is not that suddenly one day the body dies. It keeps aging because, like anything in the creation, it has an inherent disintegrative factor, entropy, which drives order to disorder. Being put together, it has a natural tendency to fall apart and is therefore meant to die like your car. The more you understand this, the better you can appreciate being alive today. You can celebrate life. All you have to plan for is one day today. And since you only need to concern yourself with today, you need not spoil it by quarreling with anybody. It is something like traveling. There are always some people who create problems. You just put up with them. After all, it is just for a few hours. Similarly, for one day only, every day I celebrate living and I am not afraid of death. Shall I repeat this paragraph? It is very, very profound. Cognitive appreciation here of the fact that I, Atma, am not subject to death can neutralize the thought which precedes the emotion of fear. The thought, I will die, is not seen by you, only the emotion of fear is seen. If you can detect the thought, I will die, you can begin to inquire into it. What is it that is going to die? The body? It is definitely going to die. Nothing can stop it. That which dies always dies, and what cannot die does not. This is anityatva vichara. It is not that suddenly one day the body dies. It keeps aging because, like anything in the creation, it has an inherent disintegrative factor, entropy, which drives order to disorder. Being put together, it has a natural tendency to fall apart and is therefore meant to die like your car. The more you understand this, the better you can appreciate being alive today. You can celebrate life. All you have to plan for is one day today. And Since you only need to concern yourself with today, you need not spoil it by quarreling with anybody. It is something like traveling. There are always some people who create problems. You just put up with them. After all, it is just for a few hours. Similarly, for one day only, every day I celebrate living and I am not afraid of death. So beautiful. This technique of neutralizing a thought or a pattern of thinking by its opposite is called Pratipaksha Bhavana. Thereby, we bring about a cognitive change so that the thought of death either does not come, or if it does, the neutralizing thoughts arise along with it. We have to create such antibodies in our minds in order to deal with these fears as they arise. As the thought, I will die, arises, it is met with the thought, the body will die, that is inevitable. But that I am alive today is a matter for celebration. When this body will die is anybody's guess. When this body will die is anybody's guess. Ask anyone in the emergency ward if he planned to come there. Then you will understand. Some grace has to operate to keep us alive, and therefore, that we are alive today is a matter for celebration. One good thing about death is that it has to be dealt with only once. I repeat, one good thing about death is that it has to be dealt with only once. When it comes, we will see what we have to do. Till then, it is not a real problem. By the time it comes, we may be ready to go. We may welcome it. A story is told of an old Swami who had lived for more than 30 years in Uttarkashi and Rishikesh. When he fell ill, his devotees wanted him to come down to Delhi or Dehradun so that he could receive proper treatment. One day the Swami said to one of his disciples, suppose you are a busy man talking to a group of people. An old man walks into the gathering and finding you very busy, he sits in one corner, evidently waiting to talk to you. He is sitting far away and not interested in the satsanga, but is, is just waiting to talk to you. Gradually, all the people leave one by one. Now, will you get up and go to your room, or will you call the old man and ask him what he wants? The disciple responded, I would definitely talk to him and perhaps finish with all the other people in order to do that. Then Swami continued, similar is the case here. Ever since I came into this world, I have been busy doing one thing or the other. And this old man, Mr. Death, who came along with me, has been waiting very patiently all this time. Now he thinks that this is the time to come to talk to me. Should I give him an interview or should I escape from him? Since he has been patiently waiting for so long, it is only right that I give him an interview now. It is time now. So beautiful and profound.
Wonderful.
Death is always around the corner, mobile in the form of every vehicle and stationary in the form of microbes and so on. There is no escape from him, for It is the nature of this body to die. It is put together and is therefore subject to disintegration. The more intimately you understand this, the less of a problem death becomes, and the more disposed you are to celebrate life. You are fearless with reference to death only when you celebrate today. Each morning that you wake up is like a new birth. After all, what guarantee is there that you will wake up in the same body? That you do is a matter for celebration. Perhaps for one more day, you can do something useful. You plan well for only one day at a time. Even a plan for the future is only today's plan. Tomorrow, you may change it if the changing circumstances require that. But for today, you have a plan. If you live like this, you can laugh at death or at least face it squarely. Besides death, there are many other things we fear, particularly the future. But if we look back, we have been surviving all these years in spite of our fear. The fear has not only been useless, it is something we definitely would have been better off without. To neutralize this fear too, all we have to do is to understand that we need only to deal with one day at a time. Please do let me know if you want me to repeat. One very rich person I know was always afraid of his future. To help him get out of this fear, I gave him an exercise. Though he had 3 cooks at home, I told him that he should cook for himself for a few days. For each meal, he was to cook only what he required for that meal. Nothing was to be saved. The first time he cooked too much. The next time he had to reduce the quantity. As he did this, he discovered that the amount of food he needed for one day could be gathered even by begging, and his anxiety for the future was gone. What is really required to overcome fear of the future is the inner strength, the spiritual strength of knowing just how little you require to survive. Then you have no fear. Just to live is not a major accomplishment. Even a mosquito lives. Go to a jungle and see how many creatures there are. It is teeming with millions of life forms. What retirement plan do they have? They all live day to day, and in doing so, keep teaching us how to live. You may be worried, but the millions of bugs living in your own stomach are not concerned at all. They keep multiplying geometrically, living a good family life with their children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren as long as you are alive. This fear of what will happen in the future is meaningless. Another way of approaching this is to look at what happens if you lose something. So much of our fear is centered on loss, loss of life, loss of name, loss of power, loss of hair, loss of teeth, loss of health, loss of possessions, loss of relationships, etc. Suppose you lose some power that you have. Just look at yourself without power. If you strip yourself of whatever power you have, you are still there very much as a person. Essentially, nothing is lost. And look at the person who has power. See what problems he has, centered on his power and his fear of losing it. Cognitively, by inquiring into this in this way, we locate the thinking that triggers the emotion of fear and then neutralize it by further inquiry. One has to do that. It is a kind of a job to be done so that the antibodies arise even as these thoughts arise. It is just intelligent living. So beautiful. So it is one day at a time. That is the key.
And how many fears he have? Two or more? Death
So
and
many
future?
fears.
Means future is everything is
They enumerated
included.
all the fear that you can think of, Like you see that another way of approaching, he mentioned everything. Loss of life, name, power, hair, teeth, health, position, relationships, you name it, everything. Whatever you are afraid of, it's all mentioned. Protecting the future. So nothing to worry about.
So the key here is the one of the most important and basic fears is fear of death, which is why that was tackled in the beginning. And then it is only one thought that precedes this fear. But then we are overcome by the emotion of fear. So the key to handling fear is to recognize this one thought. And for that, he says the pratipaksha bhavana is important. That is like the antibody. It's like when the moment this germ, this thought of death comes in, then you use the pratipaksha bhavana. And that is the vichara. That comes from the Shastra vichara. What is it that is going to die? Anyway, the body is dying every day. There is modification happening every day. So rather than impose ourselves with an ideal, you should be fearless, we come from the understanding of what is it that we are fearing? What is it that is dying? Anyway, that is dying. And that nitya anitya viveka comes in, then you are able to handle the fear. And there is no more fear. You'll only celebrate life. It's very good. The first paragraph was beautiful.
One thing more, Jai Gurudev, I was just like when we were reading the fear of the animal. Animal fears only when he's facing that he has a fear of life at that time, that some higher species or predator is there. He has that fear at that time. Otherwise, he doesn't live in any type of fear because he doesn't have that intellect to discriminate between discriminate his future or whatever is at present also, until unless he's facing uh, some type of fear of life for him. Otherwise, he remains in that state of equilibrium. Rather, that is why we find them, like we find that innocence in their eyes more, because there is no fear in them. Just like a child who doesn't know anything, that innocence is there. He doesn't have any type of fear. But as we grow and we gather all the knowledge, informations, the degree of fear it starts increasing, the type of fears increases. Again, with the help of intellect, we have to uh, undo that all that we have gathered. Yeah, I just wanted to share this thought I had.
Yeah, we have to attend that thought that time. And even for the future, we care for future or chinta rehti hai future ki. So how the mosquito can survive in the jungle, we can learn from them. And how meager we need to survive, that also we can learn.
Jai Gurudev, the Swamiji who refused to take the treatment, how do you see that? I mean, people fall sick, or see, old people also fall sick, and then we treat them. How do you see that and refusal of Swamiji because death is waiting? Because we don't know when the death is waiting. And what is our Purushartha is taking care of our health. This was my understanding before. I mean, after doing so many efforts, anyway, you will die, but taking care of our health is still in our hand, right? Uh, Not because of we would know that one day we will be dying, not out of fear, but as a Purushartha, should we not take care of our health if we fall sick?
I think this is talked of a Swamiji, and when we saw that documentary on Swami Chinmayanandji documentary. In that, it was mentioned about his guru, from whom he gained all the knowledge. When the time came of his death, he knew that he would have to leave the body, and his disciple and Swami Chinmayanandji, he said that you come to Delhi and take treatment, but he refused at that time because he knew that his time is coming to leave that body. What I recollect from that documentary. So maybe it is talked of the enlightened souls here who know when they will be leaving our body, they will be leaving their body. I think so.
No, the
Also,
inquiry
last
comes.
chapter we learned once a person is a kritakritya, he has completely used up his will and he's realized his true nature. What takes on is only his pure prarabdha. And that prarabdha can manifest as an illness. Like what happened to Ramana Maharshi, what happened to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So at that point, even that will to live is not there for them. The prarabdha is what takes over completely. Whereas for you and me, it's a mixture of prarabdha and self will. So we
We
have to,
cannot
as long,
differentiate prarabdha and will also.
yeah, and we will have to continue to preserve the body so that because the body is the means to the end. This is the instrument with which we move on this path. But whereas the mechanics becomes different with for an enlightened soul. So I suppose that is how it is.
One
So,
sentence is there, sorry. One sentence is there that the inquiry will come, what will die? It's the body only. Can you read that 3 lines, please, Belaji?
yeah.
Belaji is not there. Is
Oh, sorry,
Dr.
sorry.
Mara? Are you able to take on? If you're able to read, or anybody else who can read?
One question again. You said we need to take care of the body until the natural death comes. But many a times, like old people, they refuse to take treatment. Mm, Maybe, as you said, there is no will to live, or they are tired of the pain which they are going through. So, in such cases, what should we be doing? Because they don't want to go through that pain, and that's why they refuse the treatment. uh, they may not know that the death is near. They after treatment they survive, and they live their life healthy. In such cases, what should be done? Like,
celebration.
It is, I mean, as a part of the ethics, like if if the person has mentioned, what is the reason they denying it, or what, we can understand what stage are in their life right now. Sometimes people lose all their function and their memory and stuff like that. Then if they had already made a decision for themselves, then it's okay. I mean, legally speaking, that's what I'm talking about. But if they haven't made decision, we still need to care for them as much as possible. And what is treatable and treat. I mean, if I were to say, if I happen something to me, if I'm able to function and get back to my normal life, functional life, then I would be revived or do whatever need to be done. But if that's not going to be a possibility, then let go. So it's just that way to take it. But somebody didn't make any decision and they leave it to the uh, daughter or son or the person who taking care of them, because mostly they don't talk about these kind of things back home, and it's really hard to make decisions. But then you have to weigh in the what stage and they're doing now, and see how we can take care of them.
No, here the important point is you are ready to die. Means you are not afraid to die. You are ready to talk to the person, the death. Means you have grown up such a way that fearlessly you accept death. That stage you should reach. That is the important point there. Okay, medicines, that this will be there. That is the ongoing process. But the most important process here is you are not afraid of death and you are ready to die. You call him and give interview.
When you're making decision for yourself, that'd be easy to make it. But if you're making decision for somebody else,
you are fearless there.
Then yeah, I mean, you know what it is, so then you got to make decision based on what is right, even that point.
And that part, that taking medicine and all is going on. We leave to that. Okay. But in the main, the main thinking is that you are ready to face the death. Oh, I will die. Nobody is caring me. That should not be there. Somehow make me stay here. Such things should not be there. You can give interview to the death fellow happily. Means you are ready to die. That is the fearlessness, with fear, fearless. That is the main important point there, talking to that old man.
Can we continue further, please?
You want me to read if Bela is not there?
Yes, if you can continue, will be good.
Yeah. Sattva Samshuddhi. Sattva Samshuddhi means purity of mind, Antakarna Shuddhi. If all the values are properly understood, there will certainly be Antakarna Shuddhi. But here it is mentioned separately as a value. It means clean thinking, which is expressed very beautifully by Shankara as giving up of deceit, cheating, and falsehood in your interactions with people. If you are free from these in your thinking, there is naturally a certain cleanliness in your interactions. You have Sattva Samshuddhi. I read this again. Sattva Samshuddhi means purity of mind. Antakarna Shuddhi. If all the values are properly understood, there will be certainly there will certainly be Antakarna Shuddhi. But here it is mentioned separately as a value. It means clean thinking, which is expressed very beautifully by Shankara as giving up of deceit, cheating, and falsehood in your interactions with people. If you are free from these in your thinking, there is naturally a certain cleanliness in your interactions. You have Sattva Samshuddhi. Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti. Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti means steadiness in contemplation. Jnana, knowledge, here is self knowledge as received from the Shastra and the teacher. The meaning of the word Atma and the word Brahman has to be properly understood. Every word has a relevant reality, vastu. So the reality of these words has to first be cognitively appreciated from the Shastra and the teacher. Then that understanding has to be released from any obstruction it may have due to a certain lack of preparedness, due to lack of certain preparedness. I'll read this again. Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti means steadiness in contemplation. Jnana, knowledge, here is self knowledge as received from the Shastra and the teacher. The meaning of the word Atma and of the word Brahman has to be properly understood. Every word has a relevant reality, vastu. So the reality of these words has to be first be cognitively appreciated from the Shastra and the teacher. Then that understanding has to be released from any obstruction it may have due to a certain lack of preparedness. This is taken care by nididhyasana, contemplation on what you have understood, and this is called jnana yoga here, where yoga is meditation. That meditation releases the knowledge of obstructions which deny you all its fruits. To assimilate your own knowledge as something that is very much with yourself, you have to contemplate upon yourself with a certain mastery over the senses, etc. That is why one pointedness, ekagrata, etc., is implied in meditation. You make that same knowledge gathered from the teacher and the Shastra very immediate, very well known, with no doubt at all. In other words, free from all obstructions. You stay with the knowledge until a time comes when you do not need to stay with it because it is yourself. There is no need to stay in yourself. Till then, there is a seeming attempt to stay. This tendency to spend time in contemplation is very natural to a person who has spiritual wealth, Devi Sampat. Even the choice to gain spiritual knowledge is due to Devi Sampat. I'll read this again. To assimilate your own knowledge as something that is very much with yourself, you have to contemplate upon yourself with a certain mastery over the senses, etc. That is why one pointedness, ekagrata, etc., is implied in meditation. You make that same knowledge gathered from the teacher and the Shastra very immediate, very well known, with no doubt at all. In other words, free from all obstructions. You stay with the knowledge until a time comes when you do not need to stay with it because it is yourself. There is no need to stay in yourself. Till then, there is a seeming attempt to stay. This tendency to spend time in contemplation is very natural to a person who has spiritual wealth, Devi Sampat. Even the choice to gain spiritual knowledge is due to Devi Sampat. Before he proceeds, Shankara makes a note here. He says, this Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti is the most important one among all the others that constitute Daivi Sampat, and says Daivi Sampat is a wealth which consists of Sattva Guna and is therefore Satviki Sampat. And for the word Satviki, he gives a general definition in a brief but important statement. Yatra Esham Adhikritrana Adhikratanam Ya Prakriti Sambhavati Satviki Sa Uchyate. Yatra Esham Adhikritanam
Yatra yesham adhikritanam
Ya
ya
Prakriti
prakriti sambhavit
Sambhavati
satviki
Satviki
sa uchyate.
Uchyate. When the pursuit is only of things that are to be done and nothing else, it is said to be Satviki. Before I read this again, before he proceeds, Shankara makes a note here. He says, this Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti is most important one amongst all the others that constitute Daivi Sampat, and says Daivi Sampat is a wealth which consists of Sattva Guna and is therefore Satviki Sampat. And for the word Satviki, he gives a general definition in a brief but important statement. Yatra esham adhikritanam ya prakriti sambhavati satviki sa uchyate. When the pursuit is only of things that are to be done and nothing else, it is said to be satviki. In the Vedic society, we had Varna Ashrama Dharma, a code of conduct that is defined according to what particular group a person belongs to. All activities required to maintain the society were divided into 4 groups, and the people were also divided accordingly. The duties a person was qualified to perform were determined by the group he belonged to and were all well defined. The concept behind this is that a human being is here to accomplish the particular end of moksha. Whether one discerns it or not, this is what everybody wants. Nothing less will satisfy the human heart, since the basic problem is one of self non-acceptance. Acceptance is possible only when a person discovers the self to be free from any lack. In other words, complete. And the self happens to be complete. Discovering this fact releases that individual from his erroneous sense of imperfection. When this is the ultimate end, all activities are reduced to duties. Then, by conforming to these well defined duties, one can neutralize the likes and dislikes, raga, dveshas, that disturb the basic pursuit of moksha. Certainly, there is sacrifice and yielding. When the raga or dvesha is not in keeping with dharma, but every time you give up, you grow because what you give up is less than what you are. As this inner growth takes place, one gains a certain amount of dispassion or objectivity, which becomes natural in time. Therefore, to make a person emotionally, spiritually, and ethically an adult, you require a suitable infrastructure. This was provided in the Vedic society by what we call Varna Ashrama Dharma. I read this again. In the Vedic society, we had Varna Ashram Dharma, a code of conduct that is defined according to what particular group a person belongs to. All activities required to maintain the society were divided into four groups, and the people were also divided accordingly. The duties a person was qualified to perform were determined by the group he belonged to and were all well defined. The concept behind this is that a human being is here to accomplish the particular end of moksha. Whether one discerns it or not, this is what everybody wants. Nothing less will satisfy the human heart, since the basic problem is one of self non acceptance. Acceptance is possible only when a person discovers the self to be free from any lack. In other words, complete. And the self happens to be complete, and the self happens to be complete. Discovering this fact releases the individual from his erroneous sense of imperfection. When this is the ultimate end, all activities are reduced to duties. Then, by conforming to these well defined duties, one can neutralize the likes and dislikes, raga, dveshas, that disturb the basic pursuit for moksha. Certainly, there is sacrifice and yielding. When the raga or dvesha is not in keeping with dharma, but every time you give up, you grow because what you give up is less than what you are. As this inner growth takes place, one gains a certain amount of dispassion or objectivity, which becomes natural in time. Therefore, to make a person emotionally, spiritually, and ethically an adult, you require a suitable infrastructure. This was provided in the Vedic society by what well called Varna Ashram Dharma. Are we stopping for a manana or should I read?
I think we'll stop here. It's already 6:30. We'll have Manana for about 5 minutes and then we'll close.
Jai Gurudev Brahmaraji. Can we have one of the days same kind of manana on Brahmadnyanavali Mala? Like taking each every shloka and discussing it.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that at the end of the 16th chapter.
Okay, done.
And Ramraji, the last shloka you chant in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, ना सहना वतु सहना भुनक्तु के बाद का, उसका भी मुझे थोड़ा मीनिंग चाहिए था। या तो आप वो पोस्ट कर देंगे जो श्लोका है, तो मैं ढूंढ लूंगी और फिर डिस्कस हो जाएगा।
No problem. Yeah, we'll do that. So in the beginning of the chapter, Bhagwan talks of the Daivi gunas and the characteristics. And proper understanding of this is becoming them, is making them your own. Like what Gurudev says, he says, this is my true nature, I cannot be otherwise. So understanding them and not taking them as ideals is, and incorporating them, it becomes part of your nature. That is the whole purpose of this, of explaining the Daivi gunas. Just that jnanam doesn't remain as jnanam, it becomes vijnanam, it becomes yourself. And it requires grace also to have this the wanting to go to the shastra, wanting to know the truth itself is a blessing. And of the different qualities, I think today we saw not ahimsa. The first one was
Abhayam.
Abhayam. Abhayam sattva
Sattva
samshuddhi.
samshuddhi.
Jnanam avastitihi.
Jnana
So
yoga.
Here,
jnana yogam avastitihi. So abhayam, fear is such a basic thing. And how we get the fear, if we understand and process the very genesis of fear, then it will disappear. And I think Swamiji has given 3 different ways in which we can deal with fear. One is to identify that one thought which precedes the emotion of fear, that I will die. What is that will die? And then you go on with that inquiry. That is a pratipaksha bhavana. That is like creating an antibody towards the thought that precedes the emotion of fear. Maybe others can share the other 2.
what were the other 2 then? That was the only thing I remember. The inquiry and then
One was the story of that old the master, where death is there from the beginning. It is inevitable. It is just waiting and waiting. So that is inevitable. The nitya vastu. That distinction also. When you know when a person is born, he is sure to die. So with that understanding also, you develop a sense of dispassion.
And loss of power, loss of name, fame, wealth, of the future.
Yeah, living one day at a time.
Time.
That example given of that person who has 2 or 3 cooks. He's asked to cook by himself. So he realizes that what he requires is very little, that he can even get that by begging. He doesn't need to worry about the future. The problem is we are worried about what about me, what about tomorrow. That fear of tomorrow is what keeps us fearful. That is why a sannyasi lives one day at a time. He has abhayam. He has no bhayam at all. He's not fearful of the of tomorrow. That anxiety is
He,
not there. So he's able to
she is
celebrate every day. Yeah.
Just can I interrupt here? Uh, am I audible?
not so clearly.
Okay, how is it now?
Now it's okay. Good.
Okay, no, I've been following the conversations happening this morning, but see the fear. Just now, Brahmara said when someone needs only little, he can even get it by begging. Is that the purpose? First of all, is my question. And I think Sureshji said. If someone loses his power, someone loses his this, losing something and then getting a kind of a dispassion, that is not dispassion, that is helplessness.
Yes.
And knowing, no, this is what I feel, and knowing that anyway you are going to die, like Brahmara was saying, you are going to die, so that gives rise to dispassion. No, honestly, I do not agree with that as well. Living one day at a time, partly yes, but here how we have to look at it as what I understand, what Bhagwan is trying, not trying, Bhagwan is telling us very clearly, and it depends on how we receive it and understand. What Bhagwan is saying, I'll restrict my argument to only this particular topic of fear of death. Okay, having a fear, not fear, is on one side, but the knowledge that whether you have fear or not have fear, this is going to happen. Yeah, there is a difference in thought, in the way we think. And anyway, we are going to die. Anyway, we are going to die might make you careless, reckless, lazy, non productive, so many things. But we have to continue doing our things. We can do, just because I am going to die someday. Am I not going to work to build a good house? Does anyone of us not have that kind of a thing? I need to do something good, either for myself, for my family, for my children. We all do have. Dispassion is something, do everything, acquire everything, but do not possess anything. Don't be possessive of something, because you should be there. You need to have the knowledge. I will acquire. You can become even an Ambani or Adani, but that particular bit of knowledge that someday, currently I am hooked on to this, I am doing all this, someday I will have to remove the hook and fly away. That should be the knowledge. But because you know that knowledge that you are going to unhook and fly away, you should not stop working for what you want to. Do everything. Try to buy sun and moon also if you can. Who is stopping you? Our rishis have written Lakshmi Stotrams saying, Rajadi Rajaya Prasahya Sahine, Namo Vayam Ye, Namo Vayam Vai Shravanaya Kurmahe. Kuberaya Vai Shravanaya. Why do they invoke even Kubera and all this? The Rishi wearing a loincloth sitting in a forest. Even the Rishi knows the use wealth can be put to, the requirement, the need of wealth in the society. Yeah, that is how. And the example of a sannyasi knowing that he can get what he wants by begging, that I do not think, my opinion is we should not go by that example. Okay, for a sannyasi, that is what it is. For us as seekers, living in the middle of society and living in the middle of samsara, that kind of a dispassion What we need to cultivate is acquire anything you want, but possess nothing. That should be the mindset and mental attitude. I may be having 100 Bentley cars and 200 BMW cars, but I need to be always aware that one day I'm leaving all of them. For whom? For XYZ. That's a different matter. That should be the mindset with which we should work. There it is, living every day. That is where, because today I may leave all this and go away tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, I may be one of those 1 million people in the world who do not get down from the bed, who don't wake up from the sleep. It happens every day, right? With that thought, just because I may not be waking up tomorrow morning, I may be in the 1 million, I should not stop doing anything. Here,
No,
chapter 4, Karmanyeva Adhikaraste Ma Paleshu Kadachana. We need to link everything to something relevant and then discuss. Then I think our learning will proceed, head towards a 360-degree view. Hari Om.
see that
Sorry to interrupt, but we are not amassing the wealth for the another future generations, and wasting the time in gaining too much or too little. Whatever we are able to do very nicely, very peacefully, and with the fulfillment, that's okay. Big things we don't want. So whatever is required, we will get that doing our purushartha or karma yoga. So I think somewhere we have to balance this thing. Not too much the sansaric, not too much the sannyasi, because till now we are in the middle. Thank you.
no, and
Exactly.
that
What we
no
need to
that
be is, yeah, okay, continue.
that what you told is correct, and that meaning is implied in that celebration. You celebrate it, you acquire everything and you celebrate, enjoy it. Many people don't enjoy it also. That is what it is, and they are attached to it. Celebration means freely.
Yeah, that is where we have to work with this knowledge. That is where we have
that
to apply
knowledge
this knowledge
knowledge
that
in
I
that is
have.
given in celebration.
We should not be like that 95 gold coins fellow.
Yeah.
Briefly, if I have a minute, I will say a king saw a sweeper on the road who is very, very happy. And that man is very happy and he calls the minister. Why he is so happy? And as a king, I am still unhappy. The minister tells the king, King, just give him 90 gold coins and see. The king says, Why? Minister smiles and says, Just give him. And he walks away. Then the king calls that fellow in the Raj Darbar next day and says, Here I see you working very hard and all that, but you are very happy. I'm very glad to note. So here is my reward. I am giving you 90 gold coins. And the man happily takes the 90 gold coins, goes home, shows his wife, and nicely ties them and puts them in a safe box and stacks it away. Then that night, while sleeping, he will be thinking, This king fellow gave me 90. He could
Why not?
have given me a round figure 100, no? Such a conjuice of a king this fellow is. So the good fellow became a bad fellow. Then he says, Doesn't matter. I will work hard to make up that balance to get that 10 more gold coins. And from next day, he will be starting working. He'll start working 2 shifts. And after 2 shifts, also, he's unable to make up the gold coins. He's in a hurry to make them. So then he starts selling vegetables during part time. That days and everything. He hardly spends time at home. Then next day, and after a few days, the king sees him sweeping the floor again. And then his face is not having that happiness. And that fellow is having a frown on the face. He's not humming a happy tune while cleaning the floor. He's just grumbling something or quietly he's doing. Then the king asked him, Hey man, how are you? And he looks at the king and says, Okay, Your Majesty, I'm okay, I'm fine. And he walks away. Then the minister is beside the king. King says, What? This fellow was very happy when he was damn poor. I gave him 90 gold coins, and now he seems very unhappy. Then the minister says, Sir, I told you 90 because the human tendency is they want to make that round figure. That fellow is now working his life out to make that 10. He's not spending the 90. That is what we should not be. That is what we should not be. We should not be like the 90 gold coins fellow. We should always be like the 20 silver coins. Today, I don't know whether we'll have the time to talk about 20 silver coins some other time. Hari Om.
Celebration. That is what is celebration.
Exactly.
Whatever we have.
When Bhaiya come every day, no, please.
Okay, I will. I will.
Please come.
Yeah. That if we have it another minute, I will tell 20 silver coins also, if people are curious.
Okay, Premji.
Yeah, carry on. Please.
It's a short one. There is one guy who who finds a stone, shining stone, while walking in a stream. He takes it to a jeweler, and the jeweler says, "I'll give you 100 gold coins." Then this guy gets a doubt. Why, for a stone, this fellow is giving 100 gold coins? I think I should be more careful. And he refuses. He goes to a bigger jeweler. That fellow says 500 gold coins. This man gets confused. Then he goes to the biggest jeweler. That man says, I honestly do not, he is very honest, the bigger jeweler. He says, I cannot really evaluate this stone because if I give my entire shop to you also, I will be paying you less. So best thing is go to the king. King is the only person who can uh, pay you the value. He goes to the king, and the king calls the treasurer, and the treasurer is an expert. He sees, then he whispers in the king's ear, Sir, we cannot pay for this, even if I pay off all the money in the king's treasury. King is surprised. But as a good king, I cannot steal it from him. So I'll give him a choice to take as much as he wants in a time span. I'll give him a time of 1 hour. And in 1 hour from the treasury, whatever he can take, he can take. And then that's it. Is it a fair deal? He says. The treasurer says yes. And this guy who brought the stone says yes. Then at 11 in the morning, they open the treasury, and this man runs in with some 10, 15 bags, big bags. He goes in, and he's warned by 12, you should be out. And whatever you bring out, then I will be getting. Actually, this stone, how he gets, I forgot to tell you. He goes to a diving beach where the deep sea divers are there. They take some money, dive, and bring whatever they get to the hand and hand it over. He had 20 silver coins. He gives it to one diver. Diver goes into the water and brings something, whatever he found in the hand, and just puts it in his hand. This what the diver brings is this stone. That is the actual connection. And he paid 20 silver coins. He runs. Now we'll come back to this story. He runs into the treasury with all his 20 bags and starts filling up all the bags. And he loses the sense of time. Then the warning bell comes. It is 11:55. Next 5 minutes, you need to come out. Then this fellow says, okay. And he says, 5 minutes, I can fill one more bag. And he fills. That is the 20th bag, last bag. Now they say, come out. Then he says, I am coming. And he tries to pull all the 20. He is not able to. He tries to pull 10. No. 5. No. Even one bag he is unable to pull. Then they'll say, now we are hitting the 12. And they start giving, the clock is starting hitting 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then he gets panic and he starts running out, at least with pulling one bag, and the bag's handle tears away and he's unable to. Then he runs out, and he just puts at random hand on one of the bags on the way, puts his hand and takes whatever comes and runs out. Just before the door closes, he comes out and he falls down. Then he says, okay, somehow I came out. And he opens his hand and he has 20 silver coins in his hand. So, karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. His karma He had an option to do his karma in a better way. He did it, he chose to do in a different way. So mapaleshu kadachana, he does not have control on the result. So he did his karma to the best of his understanding, maturity, knowledge, and perception. But mapaleshu, for what he knows, it is like exam. Whatever you know, you put it on paper and you get the marks. So for that exam of life he wrote, that was the result he got. Then he thinks, this is what is for me. I deserve only the 20 silver coins, and he just walks away. Hari Om.
Good.
Very nice. Very nice. But whatever we read today in the Bhagavad Gita, um, I like that sentence. Don't judge. This whatever knowledge is there for you, it is for you, not for judging the others also. It is not connected to your story, Bhaiya. I'm sorry. Mhm. But that thing has stuck me.
So we will close now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
With,
we'll close now.
with
Ultimately, it is need-based living. And yeah, we'll continue tomorrow. We'll just do a repeat of these two shlokas and go forward.
okay.
Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.